Good afternoon, sir.
Yo, yo. This is episode 51 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your host, Brett and CH. Today's topics. I saw a recent article about Trump popping the Bitcoin bubble in 2017. Looks like there's speculation that the CFTC and those cash-settled CME futures might have had something to do with it. So we'll talk about that. China FOMO. Did Xi pump our bags with that tweet about blockchain technology? And we'll touch on that. And also, looks like things aren't going so hot in Bcash land, and Roger might be throwing a little bit of a shit fit over here. Looks like they've been having some issues with finding blocks, and then blocks being found way too quickly, and somebody has the control of majority of the hash rate. So we'll touch on shitcoin land. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I forgot Roger Cash was a Bcash guy. Because we talked about him, I think, before one of our podcasts the other day. Like, I have respect for the guy. I think he's a brown belt now in jiu-jitsu, and he's competed, and he's and like, it's funny, like, so one of the guys I train with out where I live now, like, he like went against Roger at a competition. I think they were having purple belts or something like that at the time, and at the end, like, Roger ended up giving him Bitcoin. Like,
yeah, dude, I believe it.
So I thought that was pretty cool. So
that is funny.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's funny, because like obviously Roger's become like more of this whatever figure in crypto Twitter, crypto land.
Sure.
But it's just funny, like, small world, I guess, or whatever. But
yeah. Say what you want about Roger. He's also he's given away a lot of Bitcoin in his day, trying to gain adoption, and I wish he wouldn't have gone the Bcash route and went into Scam Central, but it is what it is. Everybody plays their part when they need to play their part, and he was arguably good for Bitcoin from the time he was involved up until the past 2 years or so. But, it just kind of is what it is. But I guess we'll touch on all that Bcash drama towards the end of the show. But what do you think? Should we jump into that Trump popping the Bitcoin bubble article?
Yeah. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the CME futures gapped up from a close of about 87.50 on Friday, opening up at 9,700 roughly. So there are some sad people out there. Anyone short of the weekend.
For sure. And I think that's just a good point to talk about the CME futures market. So it looks like our good friend Chris Giancarlo, ex-chairman of the CFTC, was telling CoinDesk in a recent interview that I guess the Trump administration acted to deflate the Bitcoin bubble of 2017 by allowing the CME futures to kind of launch. And if you remember, that was such bullish news in 2017, and then literally as soon as the futures launched, that was the top of the bubble, and it tanked from there. And I want to read one of these quotes really quick. And he said, one of the untold stories of the past few years is that the CFTC, the Treasury, the SEC, and the National Economic Council director at the time, Gary Cohn, believed that the launch of the Bitcoin futures would have the impact of popping the Bitcoin bubble, and it worked. They saw the bubble building and thought the best way to address it would be allow the market to interact with it. Giancarlo told the crowd that gathered at the Ritz-Carlton. So I think I don't think anything too much of it one way or the other, and it very well could be the case that the allowance of that cash settled futures market to I guess real Bitcoin's price in, that really could be the case. And I encourage that kind of price discovery, because you don't want these things to get too far out of whack. And I'd rather have a lot more ability for liquidity to get into the market, right? So you and I always talk about, are institutions coming? How do they invest, even if they want to? You can sit down and speculate all day long about large funds or smart money getting into the space, but they really don't have a lot of the infrastructure needed to get in there, right? They need to deal with custody issues, legal issues, regulatory issues, a whole bunch of nonsense to even just get exposure to the asset. And CME futures were the first ones to kind of, well, besides LedgerX, those were one of the first ones to give you that type of exposure. So uh, I encourage it, honestly. Like I think that it does aid in the price discovery, and it may have played a role in popping that bubble. But if anything, I think it's a good thing. But I'm curious to hear what you think about it.
Well, I was going to say, I think we sometimes tend to forget the state of Bitcoin in the fall of 2017 into leading into the winter. Do you remember how it was impossible to send transactions, and if you sent off an exchange that didn't allow you to adjust like the fee, you would get
Right.
absolutely dicked if it wasn't high. It was
Oh
like,
yeah.
and that was part of the whole altcoin narrative was holy shit, Bitcoin you can't even send anything right now, but all these altcoins you can click a button and it works. Um,
Right. Right.
so I think we forget about that, and so yeah, was it probably good there wasn't a Bitcoin six-figure price then? Probably because as they were saying, like bubbles can run a lot farther than people think, and we've seen it with countless stocks in the past few years. Like past few years, you got Tilray was one of them. Beyond Meat was another one. Beyond Meat was supposed to I think open at like either $20 or $30, and it opened up at like 40, went up to 60 or whatever, something like that, and just went to what high of 220. It was
Something insane.
yeah, and so it was absurd to say the least, and it's just one of those things again. Like yeah, it opened at $40, so or 45, and peaked at basically peaked at 240. So I mean, an insane run, and it was just so overvalued, but people were chasing. It's a psychology thing. It doesn't matter at that point. As we said, price drives adoption.
Right. 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 No, that was almost like your traditional pump and dump, but people don't really realize a lot of that stuff. The IPO or the ICO, you can look at them the same way. That is insiders' way to exit and dump their bags, right? That is the ultimate way to exit your position. You take a position when nobody else can, right? Either you're an accredited investor, you know somebody, you get in on the pre-sale. You're waiting for the day when that launches to the public, either in a traditional regulated market like trading on the New York Stock Exchange, or just a shitcoin trading on Binance. It When you think about them objectively, they're really no different. It is a way for people to capitalize on their previous investment. Um, yeah, I don't know. Now I'm so skeptical on even IPOs anymore. Just
You
watching them,
can't trust
you
IPOs. Every IPO has
yeah,
been dog shit.
right,
Like that's Chewy, like
yeah,
Uber, Lyft,
yeah.
Snap.
It
I mean,
it's
I can
just
go on for. Well, if I zoom out
yeah,
of Snap, it's atrocious. 20.
yeah,
That was the most overhyped thing in the world, dude. I remember that was a big deal. Like a bunch, like I was like in college at the time, and still like kids all wanted to get in on Snap.
yeah.
And what
I
do you
remember
fucking
that too.
know? What do you fucking know? Look at the chart, dude. Like like eventually a bunch of sad people dump their bags at like single digits, only for it to run from like $4 to 18. That is just the nature of markets. Uh, I mean, you and I
Yeah,
talk about
no.
it. It's like,
It, Watching the emotions print on the screen and all
yeah,
that stuff. I think it's good because anybody who's been paying attention for the last 2 years or so, I think being interested in Bitcoin and looking at the markets and seeing how it trades 24 hours, you get a really good sense of uh, like just public interest in a particular asset or market, and then you can start applying that to other things like equities, and you're looking and saying to yourself, does something like Snapchat make sense, or something like Uber or Lyft or Beyond Meat, because they don't make any money and they haven't for a very long time, and you just don't really see how they ever will. And then you start applying that back to the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space, and you apply that same logic to shit coins. Now, these are interesting because they're all non-productive assets, and you're truly just speculating on an appreciation of price. But you start to realize you can debunk some of the by using equity shit coins and kind of parallel that to actual shit coins. Um, I think it's interesting, and I think just to bring it back to the CFTC comments, it's a good thing to have these derivative markets available, because the more liquidity you get into any market, the quicker and easier it is to have that price discovery that's just so necessary. And I think we need to see more of it.
Yeah, I think I don't know what point during the financial crisis, whether it was late 2008 or early 2009, but short selling was banned, like for a good period of time, which
Right.
again takes away from price discovery, and obviously the consequences are going to be seen down the road, and but we already see it. There's plenty of stocks from the financial crisis, like fucking. Have you seen City stock before?
No, I haven't looked at it.
Oh God, just I have to even just get more. Just I'm just gonna zoom out just for that's like this is Citibank.
That's crazy.
I know, like
Do you want to explain if anybody who's listening to this and not watching
yeah,
on YouTube what this chart looks like?
it looks like a giant double top starting in 1987, going from $14 roughly to 553 a share, crashing during the initial recession in 2001, 2002, rebounding back up to 550 a share, and proceeding to dump. I've measured it before. It's like 99.8% from like $560 to like single digits, basically, probably as low
Yeah.
as or like $10.
Yeah,
Just
that's insane.
yeah, no, I don't think people. That's what people don't realize about like in 2008 financial crisis. There was a lot of people who's just like because all they owned a lot of big blue chip stocks that like barely hung on. Like another good example, like companies like AT&T, where like they peaked and a lot of companies peaked in 2000. GE's another example, and have never came back to their old highs. You know, and might never ever see them again. Like, and I know it's a little off topic, but it just brings back the point. Like, it's a scary reality. And that's the reality of stocks. Like these companies' market caps peaked. I think GE was the largest market cap in the like at the 2000 peak.
No, yeah, that's an insane chart, and it's interesting because so many of them look like ICOs and
Yeah,
shitcoin
they do.
charts. And I think, well, it's important to apply the same logic of, these are legitimate companies, right? GE
Yeah,
is a legitimate company. They make fantastic products that people all across the planet use day in and day out. And you can see this is um, a a profit producing entity, right? Like they do make money, and their stock price really never came around, and it never came back to new all time highs. And there are people who mistakenly think that some of their favorite shit coins will they're like that alt season's right around the corner, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but you're talking about something that's crazy speculative with it's
yeah,
not a cash producing, like it doesn't do anything, and you're just really hoping that you can get out once
yeah,
it makes new all-time highs again, and there is
yeah.
absolutely no
It's
guarantee.
one thing to be speculating at at per se bottom. Not saying now's a bottom, but if you're holding bags, as what I think you were trying to say, you may never see it again. Is your point?
Yeah, you need to be able to live with that and not think there's greener pastures around the corner. Like if anything, it could just get worse too.
Yeah.
It could a lot of these coins could get delisted and other stuff, and we'll talk about that when we get into the whole Bcash thing. But
Dude,
I think it's just important to
Ford Motor
remember
Company
this.
is another good one. Like, it's funny. I think Robert McNamara says kind of off topic, but I think the Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, he was a big Ford exec back in the day, and he ended up leaving that position to be part of John F. Kennedy's presidential or cabinet, basically, which is pretty interesting because Ford didn't end up IPOing until the late '60s.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah, and going from 70 cents to $37 or something. And then, but here again, that's what I mean. Like Ford's another. Yeah, Ford went bankrupt and went to $1. Do you think about that? Think about people who held stock in Ford. You know,
Yeah.
and
One of
think
my
about if you
roommates in
bought stock in
college, yeah.
1983 or you owned stock from 1983, and it peaks in basically 1999, and you're thinking, no way, this will ever go back to my original buy price. And guess what? 2008, it does.
Yeah. One of my roommates in college, his mom, I think, worked at Ford for a very, very, very long time, like her entire life. And
Oh,
Like
she
she
probably got
just kind of
decimated.
lost. Yeah, she really like lost everything, and it was sad. That was my first time hearing of someone like being really impacted financially from the recession. And I know people lose their jobs, and I know millions and millions of people were really impacted. But that was my first like seeing it in real life, where he's like, yeah, like I don't know what they're gonna do. Like that was
Well,
everything that they had
well,
to
that's what's
kind
the
of retire.
fucked.
Yeah, and
That's the fuck thing
I mean
about those
it
like
sucks.
four. There's those setups where people's whole dependency is on that company surviving, like the GE people, the people with Ford, where the stock is everything, and that's all they have to their name. And if the stock, for instance, what Ford does, think about it. If that person has, say, what probably became, say, over $100,000 in the late '90s, goes back to fucking like 5 grand, 4 grand. I don't know. You know what I
No,
mean?
that's exactly. Yeah, it's scary,
Yeah.
and it's really scary when you
So
think about.
you think it's gonna, and I think Ford pays a dividend of some sort. Yeah, 6.8%. So it's a nice dividend, but still, like, poof. And I know it's over a longer time period, but again, this is emotions on a chart. It goes down to $7. You're still up like 300%. Oh, it goes back up, and then just the fucking dagger in the heart, down to $1 and something. That's a
Yeah.
it's an emotional game. It happens to people who never think they're traders, but they become traders.
No, that's exactly right. Speaking of people who are becoming traders, do you think we should talk about the China FOMO?
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to mention on the end of this about Giancarlo what he said about the 2008 financial crisis. I don't think you
Hmm.
read. I'll just read
No,
up.
no, no. Go ahead
I'll
and
read
read
off
that.
his quote. This is from the former CFTC Christopher Giancarlo, but this is another statement he had. It's basically the subtitle before it's lesson from 2008 or '08, and here's what he said. Coming out of the 2008 financial crisis, the legit criticism of regulators was along the lines of, where were they during the expansion of the real estate mortgage bubble, and why didn't they take steps to pop that bubble when they could have? And it kind of rings the same thing with Bitcoin here with what the CME and CBOE did. And it was like CME was December 10th and CBOE was December 17th, and that was the top. And um, it makes the point here that like what the credit default swaps didn't become a thing till what, like 2007, something like that.
Yep.
It was something like that, but it was the very late end of this, basically the end of it, where people started betting short to protect their asses, and there you go. And surprisingly, not many people get in trouble.
Right. Yeah. It is a shame, and I think that's it really sucks that a handful of people can be semi-responsible for a lot of this nonsense. And if you ever kind of watch the Big Short, I guess, or you talk to anybody who was like a mortgage broker or provided loans in 2000 from basically the year 2002 to 2008, like you'd think if you were selling mortgages, you would know that a person can't afford more than one of them, especially on limited salary. So I don't want to just blame the bankers, right? And Occupy Wall Street, all that nonsense. Like a lot of people were
We're
involved in,
participating.
yeah, it's ridiculous. And I actually
Well, the movie, The
I
Big
have a
Short,
family
kind of.
member
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. No, I was just gonna say, like, I had a family member who was like making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars selling mortgages prior to the burst, and then like he had literally nothing after that. But I'm thinking to myself, like, you weren't smart enough to just do simple math about like selling the guy his third mortgage for his third home who made like $50,000 a year, and knowing that like adjustable rates would just wreck this guy eventually. Like that didn't cross your mind when you were selling it. Like that part doesn't make sense to me
Yeah.
still. Like how you, because that's more of a logical
Yeah. No,
uh,
there's a bunch of people who aren't going to be able to pay these when the rates spike. And like, I wonder what the percentage changed like in the rate they're paying. Like, was it like
it
was it
ratcheted
like
up big time.
500%? Like,
Yeah, oh yeah,
yeah,
oh
it's
yeah.
probably something ridiculous. Like people don't think about it, but so your payments go from like 300 a month to like 2 grand or something stupid like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it can get out of hand really quickly, and it I don't know. I guess that makes you want a different financial system that makes things like that more difficult to happen, because not everybody is savvy enough to make those kinds of like large financial decisions. And you could even apply that same thing to a 17-year-old kid who's going to take out a loan for a couple of $100,000 to get a degree in something that the job will not allow him to pay back the loan. So I don't know, but yeah, we should jump into the
China,
China
China,
FOMO. Yeah,
China.
China. Uh, so I mean, we talked about this in the last couple episodes with President Xi announcing that they want to take a deeper dive into blockchain and they want to take a leadership role as a country. And, you know, you can, at first I kind of blew that off. I'm like, who gives a shit? Whenever I hear the term blockchain, I just dismiss it immediately because I just assume that you really can't be taken seriously enough if that's the term that you're going to use. And I saw, and you have this tweet up on the screen right now, if anybody's watching this. And let's talk about some of these statistics. So they were talking about WeChat search statistics. So on the 23rd of October, just a few days ago, there were 777,000 people who were searching blockchain. And that jumped to 9.2 million searches just 2 days later. And then searches for Bitcoin on the 23rd of October were a little over 500,000. And that number jumped to 1.3 million searches 2 days later. So I don't wonder if it's possible that's like the retail FOMO that you hear from that average retail investor, just emotionally, if that can't have a big impact on the price. I don't know. What do you think?
Definitely a big impact no matter what, because that's so many new people introduced to what blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto, whatever you want to say, the space just now has so many more eyeballs. And again, is this do we get another retail FOMO event in 2020? Does the equity markets go higher? Do we just go into this massive fucking forgone bubble, and all because central banks kept printing? Is that what happens? Maybe. I don't know. It's something that kind of goes to my head every now and then, seeing how much new money is being added to the system and how incredibly, it's like these people are driving an unguided missile, and at some point it fucking crashes and blows up. And that's what's going on. It feels like. At least Draghi's leaving the ECB and handing over to the former IMF chair, Lagarde.
Right. Yeah, we'll see how that whole thing goes. Yeah. It's just
get off the sinking ship.
No, yeah, for sure. It's funny because like I tried not to get too emotionally invested in a lot of the news stuff, and did the Libra news cause the pump of Bitcoin in the beginning of the year? Like, I really didn't think that's the case. And then I saw the China news about being bullish on blockchain. I'm like, I just don't know if that has anything to do with anything. And then you start to see more statistics about it, and I have coworkers or people messaging me, oh, did Google's quantum computer cause the dump? Is that part of it? And then I start to think, like, maybe the news is a part of some of what happens, even though I typically don't believe that kind of stuff because I think it's a lot of nonsense. But if a lot of this is just retail nonsense, then it really could be the case of seeing a news clip and then getting bullish on it. Maybe you have a whole group of new users coming in who are buying, selling, whatever. It very well could be the case that has something to do with it. And I also saw there was another tweet on some of the educational videos that China had released, and the first class was literally titled Application of Blockchain Bitcoin, and it goes on to describe apparently how it solves the double spending problem and the advantages it has over Alipay and WeChat Pay. And I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, well, if you're a Chinese national and you hear that, and you watch a couple of these videos, like, what do you think? Do you go and use your VPN and get on BitMEX and start trading, or
slinging at 100x?
Well, no, but that's kind of my point. Like, I guess I didn't know that at the time, and that's why I had originally dismissed it. And maybe it has something to do with the price, maybe it doesn't, but I don't know. That's pretty big when when you're seeing these educational videos, and I'm really surprised that they were that crystal clear about it. If I don't know what to think about it, to be quite honest with you, but I do think it's very interesting.
Um, it's definitely a step in a certain direction. You know, does she make everyone learn the language of Bitcoin? I don't know. Um, they're obviously they're, in an autocracy, dictatorship, whatever you want to say.
Right.
It's President Xi for life. So their system's different, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. Like China is just on this mission to become the global leader in the 21st century. People don't realize a lot of people are just too caught up in bullshit politics to really look at what's going on.
Right.
I'm being completely frank, just from the
Yeah.
global standpoint, they have a goal to be the powerhouse in the 21st century, kind of like how the U.S. took over from Great Britain at the beginning of the 20th century, basically post World War One. The U.S. sorted there, and then obviously had depression, but again with World War Two, the U.S. being just the huge manufacturing and becoming the outright winner because the dollar became the global financial system with the Bretton Woods system. And so now you have China looking to basically take over. Is this, something? Is this a direction they want to go with Bitcoin, with gold? Because China's another country, along with Russia, that's been stacking gold at an incredible rate. So maybe they're kind of looking at both as a hedge for what where the current system's going.
Right. I mean, they've been printing into oblivion, just trying to
Yeah,
build as much as possible. So you can't. Nobody's stupid enough to do that and not have a backup plan
yeah,
in case
exactly.
you
They're
you
not
suffer
dumb.
from hyperinflation. Right. Absolutely not. And as you and I both try to put this gigantic puzzle together and see how we can ultimately protect ourselves and profit off of it, or else we wouldn't be interested at all. Like you have to think. You see Russia stacking gold, you see China stacking gold, even you see your average retail person considering buying gold. The uncertainty is just seems like it's at all time highs, and you you can't not think of the uncertainty when you take a big step back and look at all of the easing that's going on globally this time around.
Yeah,
And nothing bad has even happened yet, right? I mean,
yeah,
like, sure, there's protests all over the world, and people are pissed because they're just getting poorer and poorer, and the top 1% is getting richer and richer, and that a lot of that has to do with the money. That is the driving force and the root cause
yeah.
of all of this. So
It's really not like
so,
rich people's fault that stonks just keep pumping. It's
no,
like
no, right.
it's, but yeah, no, this is interesting. We're like, as we were talking about last episode, I think the people who've like thought the financial system would collapse in 2001 basically, and kept going, and took to 2008 where the system completely collapsed, but it was saved by printing a bunch of money with TARP, which is Troubled Asset Relief Program, which was in end of 2008, like October, basically because they just handed like 700 billion or something crazy like that over to these banks to make
700
sure
billion, that's it.
at the initial at the time.
No, it's
Oh,
funny because
because
that
I
that
think that
was
was
a shitload.
sarcastic. I just
That
missed
was a
that.
shitload of money
Yeah,
then, and now 125 billion overnight to
yeah,
pump liquidity in the repo markets is like
nothing.
it's nothing. It doesn't. Nobody even bats an eye.
But
So
exactly, nobody's batting an eye. And
yeah,
I think this is kind of like that black omen, or whatever you want to put it, that black swan. It's kind of this
right,
giant omen here that's just like, okay, what is going on?
right.
Like, and how long? Because to be honest, like you would think markets could go higher because of the amount of money they're adding or whatever, but nothing's happening. We're barely moving up. So, and like record low volume on the SPY, ETF. So
Yep.
what's happening? Something's not right.
Yeah,
Um,
it seems like there's a dislocation, and it always, as we try to remind everyone that it takes longer to play out than you think.
every
It
fucking time, dude.
right. So
Every
it's kind of
fucking
like
time.
you just see the seam start to cracking a little bit, and it's just important to take notice of it. There's more pieces of the puzzle than there ever has been before, and you can do with those pieces of the puzzle what you wish, right? All you can do is look at them and assess how they might fit together, and then start to see what's at the center of all of it, and you realize it's the central banking system and how that operates on a global scale. And something has to happen with it. Either they need to come up with a new way to function, and what does that replacement look like? And by the looks of it, you start to hear more about tokenization and blockchains in China and stuff like that. So they are definitely ramping up for that next gen financial system from a centralized standpoint. But now you have that parallel system that's being built. And I think Raoul Pal likes to talk about that when he thinks about Bitcoin. Is now you kind of have two that are running together, and one's a debt-based system and the other's an equity-based system. And it will be interesting to see, assuming the decentralized system and Bitcoin gets large enough to start competing, what that looks like in 2 years, what that looks like in 5 years, and then what does that look like in a decade from now? It's impossible to say, but it seems like when you think of the Lindy effect, it's been 10 fucking years. Like I definitely expect 10 more. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's going to outlast the year or the. I'm going to blank on it. The euro. It's gonna.
Yeah,
I don't think.
Euro.
I don't think. I think the euro is doomed. I think Europe. People are really missing out. Europe's one of those things that people really don't realize that cultures they destroy themselves, and I don't know what happens. But I think the EU is going to be the first thing that's going to really go. You obviously have Brexit. You have Italy. You have a bunch of countries that are pissed off, and I think a recession or some sort of economic downturn is going to end that whole thing completely.
That'll hopefully let a free market come back in and kind of wipe that away, and they can start over. Should we jump into the Bcash issues to finish up here? Yeah, so the Bcash thing was pretty interesting, and it looks like someone's gained control of a large majority of the hash rate, most likely over 50%. And the reason that they believe that's true is because the same address pretty much found 24 blocks in 2 hours, which is kind of insane when you think that there's usually about 6 blocks per hour. So, I mean, that's more than double the amount of blocks you would typically see in that time frame. And the only way that would be possible is if a tremendous amount of hash rate came onto the network. And I don't believe that they're actually doing anything nefarious or double spending or anything like that, but they're taking control of the hash rate for sure. And that has repercussions because Bcash has a slightly different difficulty adjustment, the way that works. So it kind of ratcheted back up to account for that increase in hash rate. And now you're seeing a few hours go by where there's like no blocks being found. And I think it's important to understand, and that thread is really good. We're going to put that in the show notes so you guys can go and look at it for yourself. But it just goes to show you these really are decentralized systems where anybody can kind of enter the space and join in the mining function. But there's repercussions to that, especially if the overall hash rate is just really low. Like people can come in and really make monstrous waves, and the bigger block size of Bcash is proving to be something that isn't so sustainable. And the question I really wanted to ask you was, let's assume that any proof of work chain that's running right now, and those tokens are for sale on an exchange, and the hash rate keeps decreasing and decreasing and decreasing because those miners are either throwing in the towel or they're going to buy new mining hardware and just start mining Bitcoin because it's no longer profitable to mine something like Litecoin, Monero, or Bcash or BSV or whatever. I don't wonder if the free market will decide to delist some of these chains that are just having these technical issues. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's like if something does get hacked or whatever 51% is hacked, I think a lot of exchanges will freeze up anything going on in them. The trading aspect and whatnot. I wouldn't be surprised. I think what was it? Didn't Ethereum Classic in the last year get some kind of issues with that? I feel like.
No, you're right. Ethereum Classic did have an issue with a 51% attack, and it's funny because it didn't really impact the price all that much,
Yeah, no, the price didn't change that
if
much.
if if at all. So that's interesting in itself because you don't wonder if that happens to another chain, will anybody even care?
Yeah,
And I don't know if nobody cared because no one's using Ethereum Classic, or I don't know if anybody cared because
they didn't
that's
know.
yeah, they either didn't know, and that's kind of just how the system works, right? It's you're probabilistically saying when you send a transaction on any chain and it's confirmed more and more times, and as more time goes by, it becomes more expensive to rewrite that transaction or back it out and then move those coins somewhere else. So the finality, transaction finality, is never permanent. It just becomes more and more unlikely that it would be um, rewritten or 51% attacked to the point where that transaction would be rewritten. So I don't know. I think it's funny to see people were so afraid of the fork wars, right? Bcash, BSV, and oh, Bitcoin's dead. Like it's going to get forked to death. If anything, it just made Bitcoin way stronger and more. It shows how anti-fragile it is because
Hmm.
these shit coins fork off and they're dying, and you don't, it doesn't even need to be attacked maliciously for it to die on its own. Um you're just seeing that play out in real time. So I think it will be a really good case study. I'm assuming this will be a hot topic in whatever educational facilities look like over the next decade or two, kind of using Bcash and the fork wars as a case study to see how these decentralized systems operate.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. We're almost in 2020. How much longer do these? How much longer does the XRP thing stay alive? I don't know. You know,
No, it's true. It seems like the
does it keep?
XRP army is just like it's like small, right? It's not that many people
No,
who really think there's another pump around the corner, and they are always talking about,
it's a
oh,
lot of
Brad
bots. I feel
Garlinghouse set
like
up an office in DC, and what does that mean? And thinking that's bullish. I'm like, if you need to set up an office in DC to make sales, like that's not bullish because you wouldn't have to do it if you didn't need to make sales, right? It would just be being adopted because it's a product that the market wants, and nobody wants that. So I think, just as we said, right? Like I wasn't around as a trader in 2001, but how long did it take for people to come around to pets.com not necessarily being such a great idea or business model? You couldn't just buy a domain name for a certain niche and think that was going to be how you were going to become a billionaire.
yeah,
So I think that same thing's being applied. And as we say all the time, shit takes a lot longer to play out than you think it does.
yep.
And
It just
it
does.
could take such a much longer time for new people coming into the Bitcoin space to look at other projects and have enough information to know what they can dismiss and what they maybe shouldn't dismiss. And there's still a big dislocation there, right? You still get the people who ask you, "Oh, should I buy Bitcoin Cash? It looks a little cheaper than Bitcoin." That seems like they're just using really bad arguments for why they might want to invest in something. They don't have any backstory of any of this stuff. So it will still take time for people to really come around to understanding what's really going on in the space and not um, jumping down that whole shitcoin rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, no, it's gonna take people time as usual. This is not, unfortunately, something that happens overnight. But things like what Xi Jinping did does help.
Right.
Um,
No, yeah, apparently.
apparently, according to the price. Yeah, man. The weekly, the 2 week, and the daily close in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. We have to keep recording for that next time. 3 more minutes, 30 seconds. I'm curious, and also the monthly candle closes. That's what I'm also curious to see how the S&P monthly candle, all those big candles close this week. Like 4 days left, 4 days of trading. What could possibly happen? You know what I mean? It's
I
always
don't know. We
fun.
talk we talk about that all the time, and it's like it's hard to say. Sometimes we're always looking forward to Monday, and
Oh, dude,
then
I'm
like
like
nothing
so
ends
I've
up,
I've been
and
excited
then
for
nothing.
Monday, like fucking the weekend, and just like sitting here, like okay, sure, Bitcoin's moving, but I'm just like sitting here. I'm like, just waiting for the week to start.
Yeah, it seems like that's us every weekend. Whenever we record on a Sunday, we're like waiting for futures markets to open, and Monday morning markets to open and see, what the fuck's going on with the
Yeah.
world. And sometimes nothing happens, sometimes it does. But I think it's so hard. We say this all the time. Like it feels close. Like something happens here. Maybe there's more news. Where does Bitcoin go? Where do equities go? Is there any correlation between the two of them? Is one going to be considered more of a safe haven than the other? People more knowledgeable, you and I might think Bitcoin's a safe haven at a certain standpoint, or gold or something like that. But then on the other hand, 99.9% of people might look at Bitcoin and say, how on earth would you ever think that's a safe haven asset? It's, extremely volatile. We just had the most volatile Bitcoin trading day in a very long time. What was it, like 40% in a day, depending upon which exchange you were looking at? I think that's that was the third most volatile day ever. And the last one was like in 2011 or something like that. So like I want to keep track of that, actually, the daily volatility, because if I used to believe, just by looking at the statistics, that Bitcoin volatility overall is decreasing over time, right? You would assume as the price continues to increase, the volatility will continue to decrease. And then out of nowhere, on nothing, you have a 40% move in a day. And that, I mean, it took me by surprise. It took everybody by surprise. But I don't know if is that like a preview of more things to come? Will there be more 40% days? I think somebody tweeted like it's only 7 more days like this, and you're at
100,000,
100K or something. Like, and you're just like, holy shit,
Yeah.
You really don't need too many volatile days to start cracking unthinkable valuations for Bitcoin. And like today, I can't imagine or fathom such high prices and market caps in the trillions of dollars. But it's almost, even if you think Bitcoin's a scam and will die in 5 or 10 years, like there's no shot we don't touch trillions at some point in the next 10
I thought we were going to hit
just
trillion total in 28 or 20. Well, I guess early 2018. We were so close. We were so close. Yeah. Well, the market cap peaked in 2018 because of the overflow.
Right.
But no, yeah, it was like from 6 a.m. basically to fucking like, to whatever time at night, like 8 p.m. It was like 14 hours to go $3,000 or something. It was, yeah.
Those are absolutely face-ripping moves.
Yeah.
And I remember those $1,000 candles and moves in 2017. And I mean, if this is just how it's popping out of the bear market, like, then like maybe even $5,000 moves in a day will seem like no big deal at all. In the not too distant future, meaning, in the next couple of years, like you might not even blink at a few $1,000 move, just because it'll feel normal, right? I mean, and on a percentage basis, if you're talking $100,000 Bitcoin, $1,000 moves 1%, and nobody, it's funny, like 1% in Bitcoin world nobody cares about, but 1% in equities, the whole world loses their mind. So you become numb to these moves. And it's funny because I had a coworker who took a position in GBTC in his Roth on like Thursday of last week before the pump.
Oh,
I mean, it was Wednesday. Like, yeah, he bought in the 8s and now it's sitting in the 10s already. So he's up like 25%. And he was like, holy shit, like I can't believe this. And I was like, dude, if you think this is wild, like you've really seen nothing yet. Like people don't even care yet because we're not above new all-time highs. Like literally nobody cares except for me and 100 other dudes on Twitter who like to talk about Bitcoin. But people will. I think the volatility and the how high things can go will really take everybody by surprise.
Yeah.
You just need to expect that going in, right? Pomp always tweets every once in a while, like, warning, like Bitcoin is volatile. You can lose all your money. It's highly speculative. Like, it gives you all those warnings, and people like to give him shit about it. But I think it's important for any new listeners to the show or any new listeners to Bitcoin to just mentally be prepared for that. Or if you have a heavy investment, which that's on you, but your net worth can swing a lot. And you like to the point where you can't sleep. So like if
Dude.
you can't sleep, you might need to think
Oh.
about what you're gonna do. Yeah, it can just get really really sketchy. Like it can get really sketchy really fast. So take your privacy very seriously. Take your security very seriously. Get comfortable using a hardware wallet. Learn how to run a full node. Like just all of those steps that get you more comfortable with Bitcoin because uh, your net worth really could swing a lot, and everybody has their own story about that, right? But it's just important to know that up front.
Yeah, no, things can happen really quickly. Anyone in 2017 can tell you that things can change drastically in what, 2 months?
Yeah. No,
Like
yeah,
it,
it really
like
can.
like it. I don't think people, you're like, oh, that's long. No, it's not that long of a time. It's not. It really isn't. It's like, oh shit, what is going on?
I feel like it went from not a lot of people I know my age like being interested in
To a lot,
Bitcoin,
everyone,
crypto,
dude.
whatever,
I always.
until like till to everyone. And you remember like holidays 2017. I remember, going back home or you're going out with your friends for Thanksgiving, right? Like everybody's back
Everyone.
in town, blah blah blah. And people are talking about $300 Litecoin and I have this and that
Dude.
shit coin and blah blah blah. And
Oh,
everybody's making money. And people who you haven't heard from in a long time are back into are into the space that you never would have thought would have been
yeah,
involved. And it literally turns on a dime like that. And you and I will both need to really keep our eyes out for when that
happens again.
happens again,
Yeah,
because that's a good
that's a
warning
very
sign.
good warning sign that things
And I
are.
think I don't know. You and I weren't in 2016 to know when people started flocking into it, right? So I
Yeah,
think you'll see maybe two or three different waves, assuming a new bull market happens in the next 2 years, 24 months. It could be a really long run if you think that they came out of the bull market in the beginning of 2016 and then ran all the way to the end of 2017. It could be 24 months of fun. And I think you'll like no, but it's true, dude. It's a long fucking time.
I know.
So if you assume that you break into new all-time highs, let's just say in sometime in 2020, and then how long does Bitcoin run for? And then now you're a year out after the halving. Everyone's getting used to the new supply, right? That new supply gets cut in half on a daily basis. Okay, so what do those coins need to be being sold for on a daily basis for miners to cover their expenses, right? You'd assume if half of the shit you can sell, if you sell 100 widgets for $100 each and you're expecting that much revenue, and now all of a sudden you can only sell 50 of them, well, how much do you need to sell them more to stay solvent, right? Either the price goes up and you can stay solvent, or it doesn't, and then you have to close your business. So something happens one way or the other, but it can just get really wild really fast. And I think we'll have a few different waves of new users. You'll have the people who are getting in once they hear about new all-time highs. Those people will get in. And then once the price doubles, those people will tell their friends like, I just bought Bitcoin and I doubled my money already. You should get it. And then that's how it starts to circulate among a big group of people.
Yeah, I just remember like so many people became so much more interested in crypto, and like the people who like I told like early when I got in who weren't gave me shit about it were all like pissed. I knew a couple that put a little bit of money in, and they were unhappy because even though they made money, it wasn't as much as they realized like holy shit, wow, I could have made a lot. You know what I mean? And then the other people who gave me shit were like, well, fuck. You know what I mean? Because it was like I was pretty open about it to like close friends like pretty early on about it. I was like, yeah, like this is like whatever's going on here isn't normal, and it wasn't. And it wasn't much longer later that things got pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it can just happen so fast and really turn on a dime. So it's just something to be aware of, especially when you're dealing with 24-hour markets. It, Everything just plays out so much faster than you'd be used to in a more traditional market that doesn't trade on a 24-hour basis. And it's funny because like I like it now because things just happen faster, and you just need to be aware of that. You really just need to be aware.
Yeah, no, it's things happen quick, and even in regular markets, they happen pretty quickly. Like the 20 at the start of 2018 when it looked like everything was over, like when Bitcoin bubble popped and crypto popped, and then like a month later equities fell, like the VIX Mageddon or Volmageddon happened, and everything hit the fan. It was like, well, adios.
Yep.
And then and then same thing again at the end of 2018. Now here we are, end of 2019, and we're at all-time highs. So we're gonna look back in like 2 months from now and see how this fares. Like what, end of December?
Yeah. No, we'll be deep into Q4, and
we'll know how we sounded or how dumb or how smart we looked.
Yeah, we're gonna have to reference back to these episodes.
Yeah.
We think that's a good way to wrap it up.
That's a good way to wrap it up.
Yeah, that was so this was just some news really worth talking about. Make sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. Leave us some comments. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. Follow on Spotify. And as always, DMs are open, so please reach out and let us know what you guys want us to talk about.
Yeah,
thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, episode 51. Thank you very much.